Yo, it's Clear Life Combat. My name is Gardy. I have a guest that is zooming in. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and we're going to have some fun.
Morning, Gardy. Hey, happy to be back. My name's Adam Copley. I'm a MMA coach at War Training Center. Looking forward to talking to you again, man.
There's been a lot of stuff going on. I look up, and there's an event every weekend, and there's guys and you and your team. Y'all are out there. What have y'all been up to since we spoke last?
And it's been very busy. We had UFC 270 in Anaheim. Then the next week we had 4 guys fighting on the Fury Amateur Series. Last weekend we went to New Orleans, had 3 guys fighting there. This week we have 2 for the Fury in Houston. And then the next weekend we have XKO Friday. We have some smoker fights on Saturday, and then the Submission Hunter on Sunday. So very busy, man.
Okay, you mentioned that UFC over there in California, and I saw that Trevin, he announced that he's not going to be a police officer for HPD anymore. Is he doing a shift and to have more time to train?
Yeah, absolutely, man. He's wanted to do this for some time. I know he was just waiting for the right moment and for life to set up the way he can live comfortably, I guess, while still training full time. And he's been blessed enough to do that, and he's fully committed. And we're ready to make a run at the rankings and then see where we can go from there. But yeah, I mean, this guy is fighting at a high level, had a winning record in the UFC, and he's been doing that really a weight class over his own weight class for most of his career. And he's been doing it while training, an hour or 2 a day, a few days a week, while these other guys are full timers and they're doing their strength and conditioning, their recovery, training 2 2-hour sessions a day as well in the gym. So this is awesome, man. I think it'll really help him level up even more, which is crazy.
Yeah, that'll be exciting to watch and to see, and that was always kind of just crazy to me. It's like he's a HPD, he's an officer, has a full-time job, and then during camps I think you had mentioned they're flexible with him, but still, like, to have that job and still be able to compete at that level.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a testament to how talented he is, because everyone else at his level, they're doing it full time already, and he's been doing it. He's spending 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week as a police officer, so that leaves very little other time. And on top of that, he's a family man and spends time for them too. So it's been some tough sacrifices, and he's really had minimal time. And now I think he'll really be able to approach the game like a true fighter.
So Fury Amateur Series 36 took place, and there was 4 war guys on the card. How did that night go for y'all?
Oh man, it was a great night, 4-0, and I thought we all had very game opponents. I was excited about the matchups, and 4-0, 4 finishes. So happy for the performances, man.
Was there anything that I guess was a surprise in any of the performances, or are those things that y'all see every day?
No, honestly, it's not. I thought Clay would have won his fight by striking. I knew Dustin was going to shoot, so we didn't want him to grapple with Dustin. Not because we thought Clay couldn't out grapple him, but because we want to make people fight where they're least comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he took the opportunity, had a big takedown, and also they incidentally headbutted each other, and his head and eye are still a little messed up from that. And so I know he took the moment to grapple and slow things down after that headbutt. But I mean, that was the only surprise. I thought he'd get a finish, but I thought it'd be on the feet. I knew Miles would get his finish. I had no doubt on that. I've seen him do those 2 smokers where he slept guys in like the first combo. He took his time, was very calm. I like that. Hayden's fight, I literally called that finish. Hayden was upstairs warming up and talking about how he felt like he's going to get a knockout, which at 25 doesn't happen very often anyways. But I was like, nah, dude, you're going to get that modified guillotine you're doing, the ninja choke. And he's like, I have been hitting that a lot. And then as he is walking out to on the stage there and they're announcing his name, he's like, Coach, I really feel like I'm going to get a knockout. And I'm like, no, you're going to get the ninja choke. And then he got the finish with the ninja choke. But I knew he would not get to strike as much as he wanted, because Mike was going to, basically strike just long enough to tie up. But I also know, like, we've been working off the sprawls and attacking the neck off the sprawls. And I just figured a submission would be the way he wins it. And that's his most popular submission lately. So.
Okay. The thing that I guess surprised me the most was having the chance to watch Miles fight, because I had never seen any footage of him before, and he was just dominant. It was a dominant fight.
Absolutely, man. I had no doubt of that. Miles moved down here, I guess, like 7 months ago from New York. He actually had some knowledge of some of the people at our gym, like Rain. He trained with her. So he played basketball at UIW in San Antonio and trained some while he was down in San Antonio with Ohana, where Rain Guerrero used to be. And so when he came down to Houston, he's at our gym. He was banged up the first few months, so he was limited in his training, but he's still in the gym as he could. And now he's been healthy last 3.5 months. We did a couple smoker fights. We did a tournament. Both of those were successful. And I knew he was ready. We've had some high-level heavyweights from big organizations come through, and he passes all the tests. He's He's a true heavyweight. I mean, this guy's 6'9", 265, walking around, athletic as can be, has the touch of death. I mean, he can put people to sleep with one hard strike. But at the same time, he's very relaxed and comfortable in there. He doesn't rush things. He's patient. He's always evolving and learning. And a lot of these heavyweights that come in with that size, like, it's hard to coach them, because they can overpower anyone in the gym. But he's a really good training partner.
What would you say the future holds for him?
Man, in all honesty, I want 2 more fights for him as an amateur. And if he passes those tests, then we'll go pro and see where it goes from there. But I think we'll be pro by the end of this year with him. And I hope we can get 2 very tough tests from him. I want the best amateurs you can find and let them bring it and see what they got to offer. And that way we know now at the amateur level if he needs to make adjustments before he goes pro.
Okay, talking about 125-pound amateurs, I saw some things that were posted and the rankings, and it's really cool how they do all that. And the 2 guys at the top, they're your guys, right?
Yes, absolutely. Tonio Figueiredo and Hayden Bryars. Hayden's the one that just won with that ninja choke for the amateur series. And then Tonio's fighting for the Gulf Coast MMA title here on March 19th. Antonio's really, really good. This might be his last amateur fight. He's well-rounded, wrestled in high school, has great boxing, great movements, fights from both stances. So I'm excited. But both those guys are very top-notch. And, that's good that we have that many 25ers in the gym that can push each other too.
Mm-hmm. Whenever I had the chance to talk to Hayden and I talked to Josh Altum, and he was saying he wanted to get a couple more fights in and maybe have a chance to fight for a title somewhere else. And then when do you think he's going to be ready to make that transition to go pro? He's still pretty young, right?
Yeah, and he's only had 2 fights, so there's no rush. I think Tonio's about to have his 7th amateur fight. And I'm not saying that's the formula, but I will say we typically tell our guys we have a 2-title rule. So we want them to win 2 different titles, whether that be 2 weight classes or 2 different organizations before they go pro. And we've made exceptions to that. And some guys that come over to the team already with some experience. But I figure if you're winning 2 titles, you fought 2 really good guys and have 2 quality wins already.
Okay. You mentioned Rain Guerrero, and I would love the chance to talk to her. What's her career looking like right now? How's she doing?
Rain's great, man. Rain, a couple months back, we got a notice from The Ultimate Fighter, and she was supposed to be on the show. And then just a couple of weeks back, they sent an email, and they said, hey, you're an alternate now. You're our top alternate. And so we were really bummed about that because she was supposed to be on this season, The Ultimate Fighter. She'd been training for months really hard, had kept her weight down. And then we got that last-minute notification that she wasn't on it. And then someone fell off, and for some reason, she didn't get the alternate bid either. They jumped someone ahead of her. But on that note, I think 1 or 2 more wins, she still gets her call to the UFC or at least a Contender Series as well. So we're looking to book a couple fights right now for her, and I think she'll be very successful in those, man. She's incredible.
But she's staying ready just for a call, just in case?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's been staying ready. And on top of that, now we're looking to book fights like late spring or early summer as well. But, yeah, we've been staying ready, man.
Okay, so Fury Fighting is having an event this Friday in Humble, just right here in Houston where we're at. And you'll have a couple guys on that card?
Yes, Morgan Oriahi. He's fighting Keenan Jackson, who's an undefeated wrestler, fighter out of Jackson Wink MMA. And then Santiago Guzman, who was on that 4-0 win streak last year. He started off his pro career 0-2, won 4 straight last year with us. And now he's fighting Markel Medeiros, who's a pretty slick striker and a guy out of Factory X Muay Thai with Mark Montoya, so another good fighter.
Whenever y'all go up against these people that are training out of like big gyms where people hear their names and the kind of fighters that are coming out, what does that do for you as a coach, and what does that do to your fighters? Does it do anything?
I think it definitely pushes them to work harder. They know they're not going to have an easy fight. But, man, I want the big gyms. I think we're a high-level gym. I think we have a young team. I think War's only been around like 4 years. And some of these guys started on the ground up with us, like Karan Reed. Like, I remember coaching his first amateur fight, and then he went 6-0, and he's a guy who's incredible. And Josh Walker, like, all these guys who started on day one as amateurs, and now they're already pros getting close to going to the UFC. They're a couple fights away. And, I'm excited about it. I think our homegrown talent is better than anyone's. I really feel that way. Like, and that's the reason I think we've won 80% of our fights for the last 4 years on the regional scenes. And I like taking on the big gyms because I want people to notice us. I want to be considered a good coach. I want Jeremy to be considered a good coach. I want our team to be somewhere people consider when they're leaving their team because they're not getting what they need and they feel like they have to go somewhere that's a high-level gym. I want to be considered one of those high-level gyms. So I love it. And we just beat Sanford MMA, a really good guy from there last weekend on a fight that we were the huge underdog on paper. And then the weekend before, we beat Glory, Hayden versus Micah. Micah trains out of Glory now, which is a great gym, and James Krause is a great coach. And man, I love taking on these big gyms. It's a test for me as a coach, and it's a test for our fighters.
You mentioned Micah and training out of Glory. What do you think the future holds for Micah? As potential.
I think he'll end up in the UFC one day. The kid's really young, man. He's very athletic. He's got pretty good wrestling already. And a lot of those, they've got like 17 people in the UFC out right now out of that gym. So I have no doubt if he's in their hands, at some point he'll get there. You know,
Hmm.
I am a little annoyed often when people jump town, though. He's a Houston boy. I wish he would have came to our gym, or there's a couple other high level gyms, in my opinion, in Houston first. But nothing against Kraus or that gym. I think they're a very respectable gym too, and I think he'll have a great career.
Okay, earlier we talked about Santiago Guzman. I had the opportunity to talk with him, and I've heard this from multiple people. So Fury has their event, on Friday, and then the UFC is in town, and people are saying, hey, the word is that Dana White will most likely be there. There's going to be some other high level people there. Have you heard anything, and what does that mean to you, if anything at all?
I've heard that, but I don't know if it means anything. In my opinion, with the right management and the right kind of fights, uh, whether Dana White's there or not, they're still going to get their opportunities to get in the big show. And even if they have a great showing in front of Dana White, if your record's not where it needs to be yet, you're not getting the call. So things have to fall into place regardless. So whether he's there or whether he's not there doesn't affect me one way or the other. Obviously, I think it brings extra excitement to the guys that are on the fight card. They fight a little bit harder. They're probably more aggressive and going for finishes, so it's definitely more entertaining to the fans on when he's there. But in my opinion, it doesn't change anything long term for these guys.
Hmm. Earlier, you mentioned we were talking about Hayden, about there's a couple boxes that need to be checked before you go pro. Have two titles or five, a different promotions and get the title. Are there any other things that those people need to check? That's just something I never really thought about before.
We have a checklist technically. We've made exceptions on it, but we have a thing that we want them to be a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, or at least competing and winning at purple belt in jiu-jitsu. A lot of these amateurs lack on the ground game, and by the time they get to that next level, I want them to have a good enough ground game that they can compete against the highest level grapplers. Because you never know who you might have to fight early on in your career. You could be like, as a female, 3-0, get a call up to the UFC, and now you're fighting like a world-class black belt on your fourth fight as a pro. So you got to be prepared for that. So yeah, there's other check boxes we do require, but really it's just to keep us accountable as coaches, like not to let people jump pro too soon.
Hey, last time that you came on, you were talking about some of the girls that are competing there and fighting, and I had the chance to talk to Mia Graw, and one person I think that accidentally got skipped over was Madison. Is it Gwen?
Yes, Madison Gwynn. She's really solid wrestler. I think she was a state champ wrestler. She's 2-0, 125er. She's tough as nails, man. You definitely have a chance to talk to her. You should take advantage of it. She's also very entertaining on the mic. I'm warning you ahead of time, but she's kind of like Rain in that sense. They're both very vocal and opinionated, but yeah, man, she's got a bright future for sure. She's doing the subs on the shore,
Mm-hmm.
March 19th in a wrestling match, which is really cool. And then I've already put her name out there to a couple different cards for April and May. So hopefully we get her another fight booked.
Yeah, so I actually have something scheduled with her because she's going to be doing submissions on the shore. So we're going to be doing some of the live streaming for that event with Albert, and I'm excited to be a part of it. But that'll be cool. And I did see one of the interviews that she did, and the way that I would describe it is she has a lot of energy, and it's good energy. It just seems like she'd be fun to be around.
Absolutely. She talks a lot. In fact, I have to remind her to stop talking so much during practice sometimes, because she'll start talking and then she gets everyone else talking. But yeah, she's very vocal. She's grown on me. When she first came in, she was dating someone on the team, and I thought like, this girl won't last. And she got beat up a little bit when she first came in, but she's tough as nails, man. She's very loyal, and she's grown on me so much, man. And she's very consistent in the gym. Whether she's injured or not, she's in the gym.
Have you seen that mess up stuff, like people trying to date within the gym?
Yeah, absolutely. Usually one of them leaves, or they want each other to leave or something. But I think it's been quite a while since they dated. They're long past that now. But yeah, it can get messy. That's for sure. Hopefully when people break up, they keep it as a mutual nice breakup. But as a coach, I mean, that's something that's potentially going to happen again in the future with people.
Yeah, it seems like there'd be a real like, do y'all really like each other? Like, or I'm gonna pick the best one and they get to stay.
Yeah, that's what I tell them though. Like, if y'all date each other and then break up, like, I'm staying out of it. You're both more than welcome to the gym. I'm not kicking anyone off the team or any of that crap. Like, if you can go through the training and stick to our team and our requirements, then you deserve to be on the team and just spend time. And eventually one of y'all will get over it, or both of y'all will get over it. And they're
Yes.
cool now. Like they're fine. They're very cordial and to each other and stuff. But yeah, at first it was a little awkward. And then I would try to make it a little more awkward on top of that, just because it was weird silence and stuff.
So yesterday I was talking to Marcus with Loaded Pistols, and I know he sponsors a lot of different fighters, and we were just talking names, and he was talking about Charlie over there at War, and that's one of his guys, like day one guys.
Yeah.
How is he doing?
Charlie's doing all right, man. He should be back to training. He said this week or next week, but it'll be light training. So I remember 2 fights ago, he had that neck injury against Kevin Holland.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has something to do with it. He still has like some nerve issues going on with his neck, and it was like numbing his whole arm. And so he's been just trying to rehab and take care of that. And so he's not been in the gym as much except for the coach and stuff because he's been a little banged up, but he should be back to training again next week. So I'm excited about that, man. He's one of the best athletes I've ever been around, and in my opinion, the best striker in the UFC.
Whenever it comes to performing at a high level, there's a lot of training that goes into it. Okay, if somebody is trying to train to make it to that next level, how much training actually happens and takes place?
Like how many years, or like how much per week is like what their schedule is?
Per week and schedules, because I've been talking and communicating with a lot of people, and there's very small pockets of time, and they're like, well, now I'm training that time. I'm like, how about this time? Actually, I'm training on that time too.
Yeah, in my opinion, like when you're in camp, you should be running like 5 days a week. You should be training at least 5 days a week. I have a rule too, like even people that cross train with me, because some people come from other gyms or have their own gym and things like that. And my rule typically is like when they're in camp, I want to see them 4 times a week. Like out of camp, I understand they have to run their own gym or they're training elsewhere, they're out of town or whatever, they live somewhere else. But like in camp, I want to see them 4 days a week at least. And I know Jeremy feels the same way. And but yeah, like typically, in my opinion, like in camp is when you're putting in your strength and conditioning, your recovery, you're working out, you're training a minimum of 2 or 3 hours a day. In my opinion, 4 or 5 hours isn't too much as long as they're not both hard sessions. And also in camp, like you're getting more of the one-on-one stuff. Like I try to do like more mitts with the guys that are come up with fights and pay more attention and film their sparring, review their sparring with them, send them notes, things like that.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Jeremy. He has a super fight coming up with Submission Hunter. How do you see that going?
Man, I think Jeremy takes it. I think he's the better athlete out of the two, and it's hard to submit Jeremy. Jeremy wouldn't care if his like leg breaks; he'll just keep going. He just doesn't tap, man. So unless he's getting choked, like I don't think a submission is going to happen there. He'll just eat it and keep going. But I mean, Jeremy, man, it's crazy. I feel like I've known him for a long time. I feel like he's a more technical grappler now than he ever was. And physicality wise, I think he's bigger than he used to be too, So like I feel like on the grappling aspects, he just keeps getting better and better, man. And I think it's going to be a great performance. I hope he takes the title. I think he will. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. And it's cool to see him still competing all the time, one way or another.
When can we see you compete at a Submission Hunter or some competition?
I don't know, man. I don't like jiu-jitsu. It's kind of boring. I mean, if they paid me like a buttload of money or something, then I'd probably do it. But if I was going to do something again, I'd rather fight again. But at the same time, like, I know my career isn't going anywhere as an athlete anymore. It's just not my focus, and it's not what I'm best at. I'm a better coach than I am an athlete. So I try to pour my knowledge into the next guys who are much better athletes than myself.
Awesome. And you don't get the itch at all sometimes?
I get the itch to fight. To do jiu-jitsu, no. I mean, I've done probably 200 tournaments in jiu-jitsu. I've done like dozens of super fights before. I've done fights. I've done, I've competed so much before. Like I had the bug, but as the years go on, I get more busy with coaching. It's like when I have time to go work out and train my own self, or just spend time watching film or doing something with my fighters, or do a workout with them or something, I always put that time to the athlete instead. And I feel like to be a high level coach, I have to be 100% committed to coaching. And yes. I do think like, yes, I could do it, but I know it also, if I'm focusing on myself at all, it's going to take time away from these guys. And I want to be the best at one thing, not, halfway good at two things.
You watch a lot of film, on social media. I'll see you posting that stuff, studying, doing this. What kind of things are you looking for?
It varies, man. So I have playlists for everyone who has fights coming up. If their opponent is respectable in any kind of way, and even if they're not, I try to give them respect and say, like, what are their strengths? But I'll put all their fights together on a playlist and watch all those. And then I watch my fighters' fights and rewatch them multiple times to see where we need to improve, and I'll take notes on those. And then I watch all the big shows. Like I try to watch like, one Bellator and especially the UFC cards. And I'll watch LFA and Fury even when we're not on the shows. Like I watched the Fury San Antonio this last weekend. So I'm looking at future opponents that we could fight potentially. I'm looking at what's going on at the game because, like one day the calf kicks are a huge thing in the MMA game again, but 2 weeks ago they weren't. Things like that change. And so I'm always trying to see what the new trend is in MMA and make sure that we're staying ahead of the curve. And I'm picking up techniques. I even watch like who's number one in some of these jiu-jitsu matches. And I hate watching jiu-jitsu matches because they're pretty boring in my opinion. But I know that when I'm watching the highest level of jiu-jitsu guys in the world, what the techniques that they're doing, at some point that'll translate over to MMA as well. So I'm trying to get ahead of the curve because the MMA guys are always a couple years behind on the technique.
What do you think would make those jiu-jitsu matches more exciting? And is there anybody doing it the best?
Here's the problem: is there sub only is exciting, right? Because you can only win by sub, but sub only is never sub only. They have overtime rules because they don't want to sit there forever, and so you get guys stalling. I mean, jiu-jitsu is just so much stalling involved. There's so much going for points, and in my opinion, it's about in jiu-jitsu like who gets the tap. And like I don't know, man. Like until they do sub onlys and true sub onlys, I think it's always just not going to be as entertaining. And obviously that's not a good format either because the guys can go on for 4 hours for one match and now there's no other card. And who's going to watch one match for 4 hours? And I probably would, but most people wouldn't. But yeah, man, it's just a slower game. Obviously, guys like Gordon Ryan who get like 80-90% finish rates, like I'll watch theirs because they're going to be aggressive and they're going to force the action. But a lot of times, man, it's just slow matches and nothing ever happens really. So it's crazy. Sometimes white belts have a lot more action than the black belt matches do.
Because just don't know any better, right? I guess
they're just white belts are trying to win, and a lot of times black belts I feel like are trying to not lose.
Okay, so for Friday at Fury, for your two guys fighting, do you have any predictions, and what can people expect if they're there or they tune in on UFC Fight Pass?
Yeah, I think both our guys will end up with finishes. Honestly, that's what I'm thinking when I'm going through the game plan in my head. I don't see decision wins; I see finishes. But again, they have very respectable opponents, and I'm sure their opponents think that they're going to finish us or beat us. So, but yeah, Morgan's exciting, man. He's had a couple highlight knockouts. He was even on the SportsCenter top 10 before with one of his knockouts. He's always exciting, so he can knock out anyone at any time. He's just that kind of fighter. But he also has a really submission brown belt sub hunter champion and has multiple wins under that organization and submission wise. He's won IBJJFs. So even though he's going against a wrestler, I could see him get the submission as well. Tiago, he's fighting a striker, but I think every time that striker has gotten touched, he starts grappling right away. So I could see Tiago TKOing him, but I could also see Tiago getting a sub or getting his back or something off the sprawl. So I guess we'll find out, man. That's my predictions, but it could go any way. We got to be prepared for 3 hard rounds if that's how it goes.
And then the UFC is going to be in Houston the following day. That's this weekend. Do you have any predictions for any of those fights?
Matt Snell, Danger Snell, going for him, obviously. Hometown guy. He trains with us quite a bit, and I'm a huge fan of his, man. He's fighting Alex Perez, who's possibly going to be up for the belt anytime soon. So hopefully Snell can take that win and take that spot and get a belt opportunity soon. That's a huge fight, though. Perez is out of Oyama, who's a great gym and a great coach. And but, yeah, I'm excited. I think he takes that W there. I think he's the more technical fighter. And then also in the main event, I think Adesanya wins it. I think he's just too good, man. Like Whitaker is a great striker, and I think this time he'll start trying to grapple more. But Adesanya is, aside from Jan Blachowicz, no one's grappled Adesanya like that. So, and that was at a different weight class where he was really undersized. Mm-hmm. So I think Adesanya gets it done a second time.
What do you think about that Derek Lewis fight?
I got Derek winning it, man. And I am being biased, but even if I wasn't being biased and going for the H-Town guy, like, I still think Derek wins it. He's got more experience than Tuivasa. But on the same side, like, the fans win that fight because we know it's going to be a finish between one of those two guys. It's going to be a great fight. It's going to be fireworks. But, yeah, I think Derek wins it. I think Derek has more power than Tuivasa does, and I think he has more experience, and I think that'll be the game changer. Plus, in the last couple of years, like, Derek's really evolved, in my opinion. He's a much more well-rounded fighter.
Yes, and I think that's an example of just being able to, I guess, market yourself because – in your opinion, I mean, the fight doesn't make sense in the numbers, right? But it's what the fans would want it, so that's why they make it happen.
Absolutely, man. And at heavyweight, I mean, it doesn't matter what your ranking is. Anyone can touch anyone; they'll go to sleep. I mean, you could be the better fighter at heavyweight and still lose. And look at when Derek Lewis beat Alexander Volkov. He was losing that entire fight, but he still touched him at the end of that fight and won that fight. I mean, at heavyweight, anything can happen. And when we're talking about knockouts, I mean, he's the knockout king. So I can't root against that guy.
All right. I can't disagree. And I remember watching that fight, and it was, yeah, it's crazy. And it's like one of the highlights. Anytime Derek Lewis fights, that pops up, and I'll watch the whole. I've seen it. I don't know how many times. I'll watch it every time.
Absolutely. It just takes one. Even against Curtis Blades, he was losing that fight, but just takes one.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? Anything else that anybody else with the fight coming up, or anything at all?
Yeah. Next weekend we got Michael Murphy. He's the co-main event for XKO. He's been with us about a year now. He's had 2 fights with us, 2-fight win streak. He started off 2-3 with us. Now he's 4-3. He's a guy I have a lot of respect for. I think he has nasty hands. His power is incredible. He had an 8-second KO for XKO his last fight with them. And then in the past, he I think he has the fastest knockout in lightweight history for LFA as well. And incredible power, but he's really become well-rounded. He's fighting Ricky Romo out of Fortis MMA. And I'm excited for that. Again, every time we can take on a big team, I'm excited for that. And be sure to watch that XKO next weekend.
There's not any news from Peak, is there?
So not from Peak. I'm done with that organization. It's funny. Everyone asks me all the time, when y'all going to go fight for Peak again? Knowing my answer, like definitely not. Right. On top of how that went with Sandy and that entire mess, they were also very rude and disrespectful to us when we brought up some problems with the show that time. And so I'm just done with that. If you don't have respect for me, I'm not going to go to your shows. But Sandy's got a new date again for March 11th for the hearing. And so we'll be a part of that one. We'll have a lawyer sitting in on it as well. And hopefully we get that overturned and get that win on a record, because that one is a huge blemish that is unfair. That was a TKO stoppage for anyone who's ever watched MMA and knows anything about the sport. So, yeah, March 11th.
March 11th. They just keep pushing it back a little bit, huh?
They pushed it back, and then we harassed them, and then they give us a new date. I really think they just thought back in October we would forget about it, and it is an amateur fight, so technically it won't matter at the next level. But getting her title belt in her hands and getting that win on her record, she was undefeated, and she still should be undefeated. So, yes, it does matter to us, and if anything, we're just bitter about it and going to make sure things are put right. It might not change anything other than just peace of mind, but we're going to get this fixed.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again for hanging out today. I appreciate you, and I'm excited to watch the fights this weekend and see where everything else unfolds for the rest of this year. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Great talking to you.